Do you ever feel like games have lost their way? That the inclusion of sensitive societal topics have pushed games to become political statements rather than the dumb fun that we sometimes crave? Do you ever want to just freaking blast some space aliens with a space laser and save some Earth babes the way we did in the good old days and not have to think about the big issues that plague our society while you do it? The Dusty Game Society sure does. We are a group of like-minded retro gaming enthusiasts who yearn for the simpler days, when games were over-the-top, bombastic affairs. No heavy political stuff, no hand-holding, no subtlety, just pure, unadulterated, dumb fun. These are the games that call to us, the Dusty Games. I'll tell you more about the DGS at the end of the video, but now we have a game to play. We're going back, way back to 1996. A period of rapid growth for the first-person shooter genre, a year which gave us the culmination of years of game evolution into a masterpiece of bullets, rockets, alien guts, ass-kicking, and babes. So strap on your ammo belt, lace up your boots on your mighty feet, and prepare to enter the gritty, bombastic world of Duke Nukem 3D. It's time to play Duke Nukem 3D and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of gum. Oh my god, this game. It's a vibe, as the kids say. I mean, right from the start, Duke crash lands his spaceship, shouts his famous catchphrase, "Come get some," and then you start blasting aliens on the streets of LA in front of an adult movie theater. Duke 3D is definitely a product of its time, and man, this game is a wild ride from start to finish. I haven't played through the whole game in years, and playing through it this month for the DGS felt like hanging out with young TechDweeb. Sure, I'm a little older, I have a beard now, and I've learned a thing or two about the world since I was 14 in 1996, but I'm just as much of a sucker for blasting aliens and saving babes today as I was back then. This game has aged wonderfully. Nowadays, when you play Duke 3D, you'll probably be playing the more recent Steam version with like modern FPS controls, and it works great like that, but I opted to play the original DOS version with keyboard controls. Just keyboard, no mouse. That's the way we used to play it back then. I mean, yeah, mouse and keyboard is the superior way to play. We know that now. But I played this so much back in the day that I have years of muscle memory playing with keyboard controls. And that's how I opted to play for this month's Dusty Game Society. So, Duke 3D. Yeah, there is a story here, sorta. You could read it in the menu at the start. There were 2 Duke Nukem games released before this, but they were side-scrolling affairs. They were good, I played them, but they weren't really anything special compared to other good side-scrolly, shooty games at the time. This game takes place right after those. Duke is returning to Earth in his ship, and it crash lands in LA. Duke bails, ends up on the roof, and the game begins. You jump down a vent and oh no, there's aliens here on Earth. The streets are deserted, there's a dumpster fire, and more aliens have taken over the adult movie theater. Is nothing sacred? There are aliens all over the place. The cops have been turned into evil pigs. There's a host of other aliens throughout the world, and you go through level by level. And it's kind of like the environment tells the story. Like at one point you're captured and then you end up in jail and you need to escape a jail. And then you need to find a sub which takes you to another city. That's the best part of the story actually. Not like the events of the story, but the way the levels have actual stuff that happens in them. And then in the second episode, you go up into space and there's the same kind of stuff up there. Just really good environmental storytelling. So yeah, you don't play Duke Nukem 3D because of the story, but at the same time you kind of do because the world is the story. And stuff actually happens in this game that changes as a result of your actions. That's one of the reasons that this game was revolutionary. In games that came before it, like Wolfenstein or Doom, the world was just kind of there, and you killed stuff in it as if it was a big arena. Duke 3D feels a lot more modern than lots of the early FPS games because of all the stuff that's in it and all the stuff that you can do in the game. For example, in the second level, you're on the street killing pig cops, and then you could go into the adult video store and they have viewing booths. Ew. So you find your way up to an apartment on the second level, find the key card, and then you reveal a banner. Apparently the aliens took time to make a banner to make Duke afraid, I guess. Is that what's happening here? Anyways, you go down to the street and this building is set for demolition, so you blow that up, and then you can find a sewer grate that you can blow up and go down into the sewers and find a back door into the strip club. In here, there's a bathroom and a pool table that you can actually play. You can freaking play pool on this pool table. See, this is what I'm talking about. The stuff in this game, there's so much stuff. There's a bar where you can find the next card, and then you go into the strip club area, and the place is overrun with pigs, so you have to kill them and be careful not to kill the girls. You can pay them to dance though. Shake it, baby. And then you get to the end of the level where you think that you're going to activate the exit, and it turns out that you're captured by the aliens and they take you off to prison. This is actual stuff that happens in the game, in the level. Sure, there's the usual FPS tropes of random weapons in random places, enemies spawning out of nowhere, and over-reliance on keycards, but there's just so much stuff that happens in the world. So many parts of the level that feel like real places with real things you can interact with, and stuff that happens in the levels to tell the story of the location that you're in. This is, I think, why Duke 3D was so popular back in the day, and why it's held up over the years. It evolved the genre beyond just the graphics and the gameplay, helping it move past its primitive roots and show us that creating a world that feels like our world, a real place where you can interact with stuff and stuff could happen. It made that a possibility for the first time. And the other side of what made this game mind-blowing back in 1996 was the graphics, because this game was miles ahead of what came before it. It did things that no other first-person shooter had ever done. Keep in mind that this came out before any true 3D shooter like Quake. This was back in the time of pseudo 3D worlds with raster art enemies. The items and enemies, all the sprites in the game, they're 2D pixel-based images, almost like cardboard cutouts in the 3D world. They look great though. The enemies have a lot of detail to them, great animations, the effects like explosions look great, everything has a ton of attention to detail. Since this was an era before truly 3D shooters, there were lots of tricks used to do the 3D effect. It's more or less a series of textures that are rotated and tiled in perspective, similar to like Mode 7 on the Super Nintendo, if you're familiar with that. This is the way shooters back then achieved a 3D effect without things actually being modeled in 3D. But Duke 3D had a ton of innovations that allowed the devs to do some really cool things. For instance, the level of fidelity of the points on the map. Doom could do raised platforms and stuff, but in Duke 3D they had enough detail that they could make like cars and bridges, little areas of the map like this checkout with a cash register. This was seriously advanced stuff back then. And also Duke 3D was the first game that I'm aware of that you could look up or down. Before that, your character could just look straight forward and shoot straight forward, but in Duke 3D you can like angle your shots to hit specific things when needed. It was tricks like this that made the pseudo 3D game feel like it was an actually 3D game before that technology was really available. And I don't want to go on and on here. I don't want this video to be super long, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the action. On the surface, there's nothing new here that wasn't done before. You can run, strafe, shoot your weapon, kill the bad guys, standard stuff like your pistol, rocket launchers, chain guns, one of the best shotguns in any game like ever. But once you start finding the rest of the arsenal, the gameplay really opens up. You can get pipe bombs that you can throw and then detonate. You can even throw multiple bombs to set traps. One of my favorites is a shrink ray that you can shoot an enemy with to turn them into a little guy, and then you run over and stomp on them. And a freeze thrower, shooting ice balls that freeze the bad guys, and then you can go over and give them your mighty foot. And there's these laser trip bombs. You can place these on a wall, and anyone that goes through the laser sets off the bomb. And my favorite, the most badass weapon in the game, and a contender for the most badass weapon in any game ever, is the Devastator. It's like a machine gun that shoots tiny rockets. It's so fun. Oh my gosh. So you have a lot of variety in the weapons that lead to a lot of variety in the gameplay. A lot of tricks that you can use if you're clever to overcome some pretty daunting obstacles. But yeah, this game, it really is hard. It starts easy. You'll be lulled into a false sense of security because after the first few levels, the difficulty picks up. And by the end of the first episode, and especially the second episode, you'll need to make use of the generous save game feature. I say, unless you really want to experience a frankly unfair challenge, play the game on easy or piece of cake mode. It's worth playing through the game in a way that won't frustrate you to the point that you want to quit. And even on easy, it's still pretty tough. And then there's the multiplayer. I played so much Duke 3D on multiplayer. This was pre-internet days, so we had to play over our modems. The Dusty Game Society hangs out in my Discord server. TechDweeb's Discord thing, which you should totally join if you haven't yet. Link below. This month we wanted to end with a bang, so someone had the idea to play an old school deathmatch. And we did. It was kinda last minute, so lots of people couldn't make it, but there were 5 of us, and it was a hoot. We played on the 20th anniversary World Tour version, and I must confess I didn't play with just keyboard. I used mouse and keyboard in modern FPS style because I didn't want to get owned. I still got owned, but it was still a freaking hoot. I would like to personally thank everyone who joined. It was a special way to end revisiting Duke 3D for the month. Instant great gaming memory right there. As much as Duke 3D pushed gaming forward because of the innovations that it brought to the table, it was also very much a product of its time. Duke is a badass hero guy with muscles and catchphrases and an attitude like none other. This is a guy who rips the heads off aliens and poops down their necks. This is a guy who throws money at babes while blasting cops with a shotgun. I certainly liked the mature themes in the game when I was 14, pre-internet. This stuff is pretty tame by today's standards. Kids have TikTok today after all, but I felt like a naughty boy being able to look at pretty girls in bras in a game. My mom made me toggle the parental controls when she was around, but well, when I had the house to myself. But Duke is one of those heroes who's so over the top, so full of himself, that I see the character of Duke as being a lot kind of more self-aware than most critics give him credit for. Like Ash from Army of Darkness. This is a guy who's lost it. And can you blame him? The world is being destroyed. Aliens have taken over. The only humans around are girls who have been enslaved by the aliens, and they're not up for conversation. So Duke is kind of the last man alive. He's at the end of his wits, and considering the world he's in, his attitude and confidence come across more as a coat, a way for him to muster the courage to stay a survivor and face impossible odds, rather than hide in a safe place and wait for the end. So like, can you blame the guy for pooping down an alien's neck? Can you honestly say that you'd do any different in his situation? I know I certainly would. Duke 3D was a hoot to go back to. I had an amazing time and I highly recommend you give it a shot. But the Dusty Game Society isn't a one-man show, so let's hear what the other Dusty Dweebs of the DGS have to say about Duke 3D, shall we? The Bushi is a big fan of classic boomer shooters, but Duke 3D was their first experience with them back in the day. Duke does it all. He brings the action, the one-liners, and the babes. He's the last action hero of the FPS world. Grab your shotgun, load up on steroids, and get ready to kick some alien butt. Couldn't agree with you more, buddy. Beowulf 410 loves the game, still fun and hilarious after all these years. A classic example of an FPS done right. Kippalipis says Duke Nukem 3D's success was also its curse, because the sequel got stuck in development hell and it was impossible to replicate the innovation of the original, which is absolutely true, and a huge shame that the world never got the modern Duke 3D that we deserve. Pixel by Pixel says the game is a perfect hit of nostalgia, from the soundtrack to the quips to the references, classic fun, and enjoyed the deathmatch at the end of the month. 9 bubblegums out of 10 ass kickings. AJP says Duke 3D still holds up. Sure, the controls are wonky, but it's a sign of the times, baby. 9 Cyclops Cyborg bosses out of 10. I freaking hate that boss, man. Super Scatman had a blast playing the game. Classic boomer shooter action. Lots to love, but didn't love the boss battles, and I totally agree with that. They're kind of lame. Gave it 9 Duke burgers out of 10, and I totally agree with that too. Arnoff Power. Loved revisiting the game this month. Loves the creative level design, iconic weapons, but was reminded at how hard the game was and accidentally exploding themselves. 0 out of 10 bubblegums. Bits and Bytes says that Duke 3D was a blast to nostalgia world. Had a ton of fun, loved the Easter eggs, found it was easy to get lost in the levels, but smashing aliens with your mighty foot never gets bored. 8 out of 10 on the come get some scale. Ripska had a blast. Enjoyed the environmental storytelling and all the fun things that happen and that you can do in the levels. Alan found that replaying this made them realize how much modern boomer shooters have to thank Duke. Says it has aged like fine wine. Well said, buddy. I'd like to personally thank each and every member of the Dusty Game Society who took part this month. I love playing these games for this series, but it's even better playing them alongside such cool people and hearing like their thoughts and talking about them all month long. That's what the DGS is all about after all. The DGS is a perk that I offer to the patrons of TechDweeb as a way of saying thank you for your support. And if you'd like to throw some dollars at a stranger on the internet who makes videos you like to watch and get to join the Dusty Game Society to play games with us at the same time, there's a link in the doodad below. But regardless of your level of dustiness, I hope you give Duke 3D a chance, if you haven't yet. Or even if you have, just play the game. It's fun as heck. I played the original DOS version. You can do that on emulation if you want. Follow this guide if you want to know how. But you can pick up the 20th anniversary edition on Steam if you want the easy route. And that's it from us for today. From everyone at the Dusty Game Society, stay dusty, my friends.